Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. This is Zip with you again to talk everything about crypto. And tonight we've got an exciting one for you. At least it's exciting to me because this, in my opinion, is what this environment is about. Remember, everybody, please continue to be safe out there. The scammers are out there in force because they want the precious assets that you hold. But with that, we're going to introduce my guest tonight, which is my son, Christian. How's it going, brother?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Zip. How's it going? Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have we're going to just talk about everything crypto. We're going to talk about Christian's genesis into crypto. And this is really what excites me. One, obviously, because he's family. In this environment, if you've been around it long enough, having your family involved in this and having that mentality, that long-term macro mentality of where digital assets are going into the future is exciting. But to see the generations behind us that are embracing this technology and for them to be part of family is even greater, because I absolutely know what is in store for this young gentleman in the future. And he's caught in really fire within this environment. And it's very excited about it. So we're just going to talk about that this evening and just kind of have a conversation, and we'll see where things go, all about finance and just crypto in general. But with that, Christian, let's let everybody know your genesis. How were you introduced into crypto? And then maybe give a little background as far as what you see in this and what you saw in it to really start to get involved and to become diversified in this environment compared to what we're taught through education, even what I taught you growing up as far as saving money, the money system, 401ks and some of that environment. But with that, your genesis.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a painful story to tell sometimes, but this is back in the beginning of not only my crypto journey, but also yours as well. 2017 was a time when Bitcoin was getting real hyped up in the beginning. Everyone was mining Bitcoin and kind of made its entrance onto the scene more mainstream. So me and two other people got involved in somewhat of a little scheme going on where you kind of put money in and they promise X amount of returns. It's all exciting. You see the big numbers, and they even actually make these accounts, and you can see it fluctuate, each day. And it's easy to get caught up in this kind of environment and those big numbers and big yields. So unfortunately, my first experience in the world of crypto, it was a scam. I actually did not receive any of those funds that we thought we were growing, and learned a lot from it. Though that was the biggest thing about the whole situation, is that we're able to learn to be more careful, and not only that, but actually learn how the whole system works. Self-storage and stuff like that, where we can protect ourselves and make sure we're actually holding these assets and not giving someone else control of them. So that was kind of our beginning back in 2017. Scared me away just for a little bit. Zip here kind of stayed more in the industry and really started learning heavy, and kind of was keeping us on the light of the current events going on in the industry. So over time, I dabbled in some other assets such as real estate and, just standard S&P 500 mutual funds, things of that sort, just traditional type investments. And with the real estate side especially, I saw how much extra work and time was involved in some of these other assets, and why they definitely have their place in diversification. And depending on what your financial goals are, they can definitely line up with those. But if you're looking for something a little more quote unquote passive, if you would, there's still a lot of involvement. Crypto and these other industries to be a little better than the assets like real estate is what I found. So more recently, in the past couple of years, I've kind of got out of those assets and have been diving heavier into the crypto realm. So, and a lot of that under the guidance here of Zip, and been learning together, and it's been an awesome journey up to this point.
Yeah, excellent. And you said a lot there, and we're going to kind of break some of that down. We're going to go back because for those of you that are watching, and there's many people that are brand new to the crypto environment, one, welcome. Welcome to the channel. Remember, hit the likes and the subscribes because that just goes into the algorithm piece as far as what we're trying to get this information out to folks so that you don't make the same mistakes that he and I have made. You know, that's the big thing about this environment. It is about learning. It's about education. But going back, Christian, about what you had said, one of the immediate things that folks come into this environment is they're chasing yield. And I've made a couple videos in the last couple of days cautioning everyone, don't chase numbers. Don't chase Lamborghinis. Don't chase big houses. If you do things correctly and you have that delayed gratification and you understand the asset that you're holding, like XRP, that he and I both love, and that long-term projection of when that utility starts to come in, yes, the growth is going to be there, but the mindset behind it is even more important. And he kind of alluded to much of that through the education of getting burnt. You know, luckily for him, it was only once. Unluckily for me, it was a couple times because the same thing. I was chasing a lot of yield. I was chasing the newest crypto coin that was out there instead of being diligent and being wise, like most financial, you know, because even in 401ks, you have a basket, but you don't chase from one to the other immediately. So that's the cautionary note there that Christian alluded to very eloquently, I might say. But the other part that he alluded to, Christian, is would you say over the course of the last 2 years or so, how much time have you spent in education and learning about the assets that you're actually investing in, learning about hardware wallets, not just, you know, going out and buying a ledger as an example or a decent wallet, but this guy went as far as, and I'll let you, you know, talk to this, but educating yourself, making sure you understand everything about the environment because it is still a very risky environment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I put a big quotation parentheses on passive. You know, everyone likes that word, but end of the day, it's not completely passive. There's a lot of work that goes into doing this and making sure that you're protected. And, you know, we're putting money that we go to our 9 to 5s and work hard for. We want to make sure that money is not only being used in its best way, but it's also safe in that use in whatever environment that we're putting it into. So yeah, through getting burned, unfortunately, School of Hard Knocks, probably the best teacher still yet though. I did go out and I've spent countless hundreds of hours over the last couple of years researching and just self-testing, getting on these environments, buying different hardware wallets, and just educating myself and actually understanding how this stuff works on the back end, so that when opportunities come up, you can see, yeah, that doesn't line up to what my knowledge is of how the system actually works. And it just gives you that extra layer of protection for yourself. You know, in an environment like Zip did say, that still can definitely be risky. There's a ton of scammers out here. I'm personally not in the meme coins and all that kind of stuff, like especially in the DeFi platform, still very early in development. You know, there's a lot of said shady type stuff that can go on. You can get yourself in bad situations if you don't go in educated.
Absolutely. Very well stated. Point to it all is education is key. And that's what I'm trying to put forth within this channel as well. You know, listening to content, listening to influencers, whatever you want to call them out there, is grand. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to make sure you understand what you're invested in and that you are protecting those assets. We cannot do that for you. We can give you the tips and tools and tell our case histories as far as getting burnt 1,000 times, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you to make sure that, you protect that environment. Now, with that, Christian, your portfolio, so you're well diversified, right? So, and obviously, when Christian and I have great, long, lengthy conversations, those are the ones we probably should be recording. But we talk about finances, but we also talk about diversification in our portfolio structure. Yes, we love XRP, but we're looking across and looking at these other technologies and capabilities going forth. And I think you kind of fall in line with that thesis, do you not, Christian?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even going back to traditional investing, diversification is key. There's always going to be winners and losers, even in certain time periods. Someone might be winning more now and someone might win more later. So it's important to spread those assets out, but also depending on the amount of money you're working with in the pool, not spreading them out too much where you're not holding enough of a certain asset that if it does, do well, the gains are still minimal because you weren't focused enough. So yeah, I'd spread out, but don't over diversify is definitely the key.
Yeah, that is critical. We call that skin in the game, right? So if you're brand new, what he's talking about when we talk about our bag or we talk about our assets, you want to put enough capital in so that if it does go to $20, $30, whatever your exit strategy is, it's going to make a difference in your life. So early on, one of the lessons that I learned was I was over diversified. I was in 20 different projects and I had 300 of this coin, 300 of that coin. And, yes, some of those actually did well the last bull run, but there wasn't enough skin in the game to make any difference within my lifestyle. So since then, again, another lesson learned, over diversification, owning more of something, more of a lot of cryptos, probably not the smartest thing. Again, nothing we say is financial advice. This is just our story being expressed to you to watch, but focusing on a couple few top blue chip cryptos and putting enough into those and then moving on to the next one. If you choose to do that, that's basically diversification that we're talking about, and not probably, Christian, would you say, not over leveraging? So a lot of people talk about going out and putting their house up or their mortgage up and jumping into crypto. Would you recommend that or no?
No, I can't say, again, not financial advice, but I can't personally say that I would do that. And more so my strategy and long-term thinking is a more buy and hold. And when we're looking to diversify these assets too, we're looking for the big players in the room that are making moves in the political realm and getting tied in with these large institutions that really already own this world and are basically, integrating into it, not necessarily starting a new one per se. So I think with this asset class specifically, that's even more important. Those relationships getting built on the back end, ahead of time, even before the rails are there, if you would. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what's exciting about this environment. And you that watch this channel know it doesn't take a rocket scientist at this point to see that the financial infrastructure is changing. And the key is either you're going to be part of it, you're going to be part of it one way or the other. But if you take advantage of getting in front of it, that's what's so exciting about this environment, because there has never been a time to where we, the common folks, the peasants, so to speak, within this matrix that we call it, were able to front run this and get in before the institutions. And now we're starting to see, because of the laws and the Clarity Act that we talk to, or that I talk to quite often, that roadway of clarity, of regulation is coming on board to allow these institutions to come in. But and it's still very, very nascent and we're still early. So don't feel like you missed it. There's still a lot of upside to this environment, but this is the first opportunity for us to be able to participate in this. And, Christian's not old enough to remember, but I was around for the internet boom and remember talking about it and hearing about it. And there was not a lot of capability to be able to get into that environment early. You had to be an accredited investor in many cases and invest in the early, Microsofts and those Googles and the companies that were taking part of building that infrastructure that we're talking about. We literally own the software, the technical stack that's going to be able to run this environment, right, Christian?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point too. The difference here between this and the internet is you just now have big players like Acorn, Fidelity, Venmo, these established financial management companies and money exchangers getting into the game. Well, a lot of us and other people were actually able to get in even before they were, which made this situation a lot more unique, that we were actually ahead of some of the big players, and you see them starting to trickle in now and putting in that front legwork to get all these systems integrated within their existing frameworks. That way, when this wave does come, they're able to actually support it on their systems because they understand how much capital and opportunity is about to come through for them to capitalize on.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, I'm going to switch the screen up right here. So what we're talking about, again, if you're brand new to this, ad nauseum, I've been talking about some of that influx of institutional value that's going to be coming in it's not really institutional value coming in. These are the ETFs that I'm talking to specifically. But what the ETFs are going to allow is easy entrance for other, investors that don't want to mess with 100 hours of education like Christian's done and figuring out wallet management and having to go through the exchanges and deal with some of the bear traps and the issues that we run across with the exchanges as far as liquidity and buying and moving fiat into this environment. But these ETFs, and again, that's why I've been really focused in. I still believe Q4, we're going to have some fireworks. And I also believe that this bull run's a little bit different. I think it's going to be an extended bull run. And I just listened to a video this morning from Ralph Hall again, saying that Q4 going into 2026 is going to be huge. And specifically for XRP, we know how many ETFs are getting ready to be approved. And that's going to create a little bit of a supply crunch, which means for us, price go up. And that's what we're here for, right, Christian? We're looking for that number to go up. But now, Christian, with regards to that and the number going up, long-term strategies, and I try to explain this to people as much as possible, because a lot of folks, the first question I get asked is, how much should I own? I don't know. You own as much as possibly you can own without over leveraging. But the second question is, well, what happens when the price goes up, and having that system in place and trying to explain this to folks going, well, if you're in your 20s or early 30s, your philosophy is going to be a lot different than someone that's in their 50s or 60s because of the risk factor of that. But could you speak to some of that as far as what your philosophy is, long-term holding, maybe profits, and talk maybe even taxes, because I know you understand the tax system as well, and how we're looking to leverage different environments, hopefully to defeat some of those taxes if we do decide to exit?
Yeah, that's a great warning to put out here to everyone as well. That's what this channel is about, to get everybody educated that there's a lot of YouTube gurus and stuff out there, and some of them do have great strategies, and that might be great for one person, but not necessarily the next person. So it's super important to analyze your overall financial situation. Obviously, how young you are plays a huge role of how long that you could actually ride this wave out, and how much gains you can actually see over a long-term period of time, and the risks that you're willing to run and take, where some other people may be closer to retirement and be looking to exit a little bit sooner, maybe at least to recoup their initial investment and maybe leave some house money in there, or strategies like that, just to lower their risk level at their specific time frame in their financial journey. But there's tons of strategies out there. The biggest thing to think about, obviously, is taxes. A lot of people have ran into this with the short-term trading and seeing how complicated with some of these swaps and other things like that can make your tax situation, and actually properly tracking all that kind of stuff. So with the buy and holds, and obviously if you can get past that year period where you're out of the short-term capital gains realm, especially if you're younger and can afford that time in market, you're looking at saving substantial amounts of this, depending on your income as well, up to 35+% on your gain. So all those kinds of things are important to take into account. And again, it's just all going to be individualized so much per person. It's really important to self-educate, and as well as bring people in from outside, that can guide you on your specific journey and make it custom to what you're going to need to profit the most out of what you're putting in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to throw this up here because I just think it's funny. But at the end of the day, we're all very excited to get out of this 9 to 5, right? That we're in, that rat race that we're in of constantly trying to earn money and earn, basically give time for a little bit of money. But with that, my advice would be is if you have a decent job, and I'd be curious, Christian, what you think about this. But if you have an adequate job and you don't need the money necessarily, and it's not life-changing, it's not, obviously if you're talking about a few $1 million, that could change the landscape immediately, depending though, like you said, your age, because $3 million to someone that's 30 years old as compared to someone that's 50, there's a different philosophy there and how long that money is going to run you. But my advisement would be if you're, we see this with lottery winners all the time, right, Christian, to where they hit the lottery and without planning, without developing the system, they immediately hit that eject button from their job, and it kind of puts them in a stressful situation because they've never managed money. It's money management is really what we're talking about at the end of the day. But philosophically, where do you see yourself? Obviously you want to get rid of a 9 to 5, but you got to have the right things in place in order to make sure that 9 to 5, that capital can be, injected there long-term to provide for your family. But where do you see yourself with regards to 9 to 5? And again, this kind of correlates back to the age theme, I think, that you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly like what you alluded to. I mean, $3 million to someone at 25 years old, yes, it's a great sum of money to have, especially at that age. But the chances of, one, you having the knowledge to actually properly manage that, and two, that actually carrying you through to retirement is not very realistic, especially the housing market, how expensive everything is now. It does sound like a lot of money on the front end, but just really isn't when you're talking about stretching it 60+ years. Now, for me, that's kind of going to be the situation that I'm in, especially initially. I do plan on keeping my 9 to 5, in the intermedium, especially if you enjoy what you do. I think it is wise to spend that extra time in market. And I think I make more gains there than just exiting and then feeding off of that nest egg, if you would, and actually digging into my assets just for lifestyle purposes, which is another thing you talk about, lotto winners, right? Go buy your Lamborghini and whatever else it is, all the vacations for Instagram. It's that 3 million is not going to go very far for you. So I think it's important to have that long-term vision, and if we do get into that liquidity type event, let it settle and really soak in before you make any immediate moves. And then obviously, in my opinion, we're made to work, right? We're made to accomplish things and do things. So while you might be exiting a 9 to 5, you're gonna want something there just for your mental well-being, to fill your time, something you're passionate about, and if that also brings you monetary gain, even better, But yeah, those are the kind of things to think of, and again, that are just going to differ depending on your age bracket and goals.
Yeah, very, very, very wise there. So, and something, the theme here if you're not catching it, it is really the mindset that's that is behind all this. And I speak to the mindset all the time as far as being non-emotional and also having that positive mindset and that locked in mindset as far as where you see yourself in the future, because there's so many traps within the in life in general to where you get into a negative whirlwind, and with that negative pattern you end up bringing yourself down without even knowing. It's a subconscious thing that happens. And I'm sure, Christian, you've seen this in your life as well, as far as, you know, in that chase and that thirst for knowledge about finances, about spirituality, life, everything that comes into this box that we need, and your tools that you're loading yourself up with in the arsenal. But that theme is mindset. Would you say this? You know, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that mindset leads to education, right? So going forward with a positive mindset, and then just constantly learning, constantly striving to get into new markets and just understand as much as you can of what's going on around you, and seeing those kind of things like we alluded to earlier, the big players coming into the game and some of these market movements, paying attention and being aware of your surroundings, essentially, so that you can prepare yourself and capitalize off of this stuff,
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of awareness, so one of the themes here we like to talk about is the upcoming capabilities that we're going to have with regards, Christian mentioned it a little bit ago, DeFi, and that environment that we're going to have very here shortly to be able to stake, as an example, XRP through Firelight. You know, I put the video out a couple of days ago with regards to F assets. They're now live. Within 4 hours, Christian, it got locked up. You know, what was it? $5 million, 5 million XRP. They opened up that first swap, and within 4 hours, 5 million XRP, it's locked up right now. So you're not able to mint new F assets right now. They're going to open it up again this week. And again, this is not advice. This is education to make everyone aware of the possibilities. Christian mentioned passive income. Nothing's passive. It takes action. Everything takes action. And I think Christian would agree with that. But with Firelight and the capabilities coming through Flare, again, why am I so jazzed on Flare? And Christian, I'll let you speak to some of this because you're familiar with Flare. You've been staking, you've been delegating or staking more so. And you're seeing some of the fruits of your labor, should I say, as far as the rewards that are coming back from that for doing nothing. But the reason that I like Flare so much is because I have control, and it's in a non-custodial environment as compared to putting it on Uphold, to where now you're in a CeFi environment, a controlled exchange, a exchange environment, to where you don't have ownership or control anymore of that environment. But I'm very jazzed about Flare. And Christian, you got anything to say about Flare? I know you're enthused with it, and obviously you've been playing with the protocol for a while.
Yeah, I've been playing with it quite a bit. It's just another awesome, unique ability of these assets is not only are we gaining gains off of just price inflation, off of price and demand and other market movements, but we can also gain in these DeFi environments through staking. Now with XRP coming live, it just stacks your gains that much more on top of each other. And in the end, as you build your bags up and everything gets settled, we're looking at opportunities to actually dive into, funding projects and stuff that we weren't going to have access to before because of these DeFi protocols. And we'll be able to make money in our sleep, letting our money work in environments that right now only major players are able to access. So that's the ultimate vision and the goal. And that is why I like the Flare environment. And, just looking forward to what's coming up in the future.
Yeah, again, the capability to keep, to eliminate taxes is what we're looking for. And through Flare, you'll have that capability to lend out your XRP, lend out your Flare, take a loan on it, to what Christian was speaking to, tax-free. Yes, you're going to pay taxes on the loan, but if you're putting it into an appreciating asset like another business, whatever that may be, or some other asset, and you're beating that, whatever the percent may be, 10%, 15%, because it's hard money. They're going to charge you a loan. That's just the system. That's just part of the environment. And Christian, you can speak to this because you are in the real estate game, and you know how much hard money getting capital costs. I mean, that's the price of entry. But the point,
which is one huge reason, the real estate environment's not doing so great right now, because that cost of money is so substantial, and people have money locked up in these assets and they can't use it without exiting, essentially.
Yeah, and that's the benefit to this environment. So again, we'll be doing more videos on Flare. I know the requests are out there for me to do a live. I will do a live on that as well, where you can ask me questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. I don't have the answers for everything, obviously, because it's such a diverse environment. And as Christian alluded to, hundreds and thousands of hours of studying this stuff and going through the protocols to make sure that it's safe. And again, that is the key. Christian's not, and I'm not going to dump all of my bag into this environment. But as you've been seeing within this environment, the institutions are onboarding. The institutions that are building treasuries with XRP are getting into relationships with Flare. There's a reason for that, because the institutions want to make yield on it as well. Because as efficient as an environment as this is, we're basically stealing the bread and butter from the banks, because you have the capability to become your own bank in this environment, without a doubt. And I think, Christian, I think the realization of becoming your own bank, you've heard me talk about it numerous times. I talk about IBC and stuff like that as well, right? We've had long conversations about that. And not every product is for every person. But the capability to be your own bank, Christian, what does that mean for you and your family long term?
It just really unlocks just an endless plane of opportunities, and especially if you can get this initial set bag, as we like to call them, collected, you can then use that in these different environments, and it's going to create passive income, not just for you right now for living, but as it grows more and more people in, generationally, this stuff can basically be a money printer, is what it is in the end. It's going to be able to provide not just for you, but generations to come down the line. And it's just exciting.
It's almost too good to be true.
It is. Really,
when you think about it. And that's why, you have to be so careful in this environment and do due diligence. And again, part of what I'm trying to bring out here, and just to help as many folks on board into this environment as possible, because the bigger plan, the bigger theme with this is, the more folks we have like Christian, the more we can change the environment and do good for that environment. And like I said, be able to take some of the profits out of this environment and go start nonprofits, go start businesses that help other folks. That's the beauty of this environment. This environment, it's already peer-to-peer. I mean, I can send Christian money right now instantly through this blockchain environment, and I don't have to wait 3 days for the bank to clear it, which we've all been through that. I mean, you've closed on houses, I've closed on houses, and I've had to wait 48 hours for the money to settle, even though I've got the piece of paper that's sitting there telling me, yeah, you're good. Okay, well, I want to take my money and go invest it. Oh no, you got to wait 48 to 72 hours for it to settle. That's what's so exciting about this revolution and this changing of the financial infrastructure. Because think about it. I mean, Christian, you know that this financial infrastructure is still running on 1950s, 60s, and 70s software, COBOL, and outdated stuff.
That's being generous.
Yeah. Exactly. It's absolutely blows my mind that it's taken this long. But when you think about all the intricacies that are behind it and all the different levers that are there with all the traders and the DTCC, the clearing houses, and all the various mechanisms for cross-border payments and everything that is in place right now through the SWIFT system, it takes a while, and that's why patience is the key, and having that long-term, thought process. And obviously, Christian, you understand patience without a doubt. Some of us who've been here a little longer, yeah, you just have to be patient and just understand that bigger dream, that bigger vision to what Christian's been speaking to. And beyond everything that you've stated, Christian, how really excited are you and for your future? Because you're young. I mean, you've got a long life ahead of you. And what's exciting for me as Christian is my son, knowing that he is the future, from an economic perspective, he is the future millionaire, billionaire, and the future big class folks like the Elon Musks and the Mark Cubans that are going to be impactful to the next generations. And that's the change that excites me. But honestly, I know you already spoke to it a little bit, Christian, but can you even see how impactful of an environment and what your future is? Because I know you got big plans. And it used to be, and he and I joke about it, it used to be Lambos and everything else. But as you grow and you start to have your own family, different things start to resonate with you, and you start to understand that, yes, we're all here for profit. I'm here for the money. Make no mistake about it. However, what that money can do in the future is more exciting generationally. How about you, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is hard to fathom, where I'm sitting, and even more so than excited, just focused, right, on how I'm going to capitalize on this opportunity and manage these funds and these assets correctly, and just constantly learning and making sure I don't let that excitement get to me, and I go in prepared for what's coming up in the future.
Yeah, and that's why we have those long conversations about structures, and we're talking about LLCs, and we're talking about trust, and we're talking about our infrastructure. Everyone has to have a system. And when I say system, folks go, well, what do I need a system? I'm just going to exit and I'm just going to have money, because money without a purpose evaporates. That's why you have to have these systems and these structures in place. And I think, Christian, I know I have a long history of money evaporating until I started to understand the actual velocity of money in my own economy. And I think, Christian, obviously, especially being in real estate, you've become more of a firmer understanding of money management and how that velocity and that movement of money in your own economy is important, because money that's sitting still, and this is my fault because this is what I trained him to do, save money, just put it in your bank, is what he grew up hearing, because I didn't understand velocity. But can you expound a little bit, Christian, on what you're understanding now through your education and what you've seen in the system, why it's important to keep money moving all the time?
Well, yeah, and you talked about it earlier. That's one thing this new system's going to allow is normal everyday people to kind of pour fuel onto the economy, right? That fire the economy and get involved. And it's going to be a lot more simple than, having to fly to another state and meet a property management company that doesn't do their job correctly and deal with renovations and codes. And, even within standard businesses, some of the hassles and headaches that come with that. You, of course, aren't going to gain maybe as much as you would being the hands-on person, but these environments are going to let you be able to move your money and basically be OPM, other people's money, for other investors that are actually doing the hands-on work, instead of having to have the full amount and that big chunk of capital. It's all going to be able to get segregated into little pieces, and everyone's going to be able to get their piece of the pie. So yeah, that's one of the big exciting things coming up, is that we can educate everyone on that money movement. And now everyone's also going to have those opportunities in front of them much easier than than ever before.
Yep. The velocity of money is going to speed up in our own economies, and that is absolutely key. And we haven't even talked about AI yet, and all the capabilities that are coming down with AI, and how that's going to even additionally change how we relate to each other from a day-to-day perspective. Because I don't know about you, Christian, but I'm already utilizing AI, and I can see my efficiency going up in high percentages because of the utilization just for my day-to-day, just for what I do from a day-to-day perspective. But implementation of that within this financial sector, that's what really gets me fired up, because you're going to have the capability to probably use it for trading, money management, and everything else that we can't even think about right now. But well, Christian, this has been a phenomenal time tonight. We're sitting at about 41 minutes, and we probably could go on for another 2.5 hours, quite honestly. But is there anything else, if you had to give anyone that's brand new to this environment, one or two pieces of advice, the highest priority things that would be on your list if you were talking to your buddy, your friend, or even your family member, what would you tell them if they still think that maybe crypto is a scam, because that's what we were told for years and years, or crypto is a volatile environment, which it is. But what would you espouse to someone to help them on their journey as they're thinking about getting into this environment?
Yeah, so there's two edges to that sword. It's the person being timid to get in, and then it's that FOMO hitting whenever these markets do fluctuate, and then maybe over leveraging yourself and getting in too deep possibly. So my advice would just be, if you are still skeptical, is to do the research and really dive into what these assets can be used for, and not only can be used for, but are already being used for, and also who is using them. So once you start painting yourself that picture and you put all those puzzle pieces together, I don't think it'll take any more explanation from me or Zip or anyone else to lead you down the correct path. So, but then again, once you do see that correct path, always remember to be smart, do not FOMO, make sure you do not over leverage yourself, and you are diversified. And wherever you are storing these assets, hopefully self-storage, they're safe and locked up, and don't let anyone near them.
Excellent advice. And I just thought about something real quick. We're going to end on this, and I wanted to mention this. So Christian and we're going to be at an XRP networking event, a meetup, a conference, whatever you'd like to call it. It's really a meetup, and it's really a family meetup. But that's at the end of January 29th and 30th. It's going to be in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm going to start mentioning this more on the videos. I've gotten permission. This is being hosted by Alan Staple and the Staple crew. But part of that event, and the reason that Christian and I are going to it, is so we can network, because we want to be around people that we can resonate with. And we know that the people that are going to be in those rooms are going to be, as I spoke to minutes ago, the future economy and the big players. And we want to create those relationships now, so that when this thing hits, whatever hit is for you, $20, $30, $1,000, whatever you're waiting for, it doesn't matter. When that capital comes in, we want to create this networking event so that we have those contacts, and we can, reach out and go, hey, Joe, I met Joe in Fort Lauderdale, and go, hey, I'm thinking about getting into this business. What do you think about it? And working those relationships, because Christian, I'd be curious your insight to this, because if you think about the big money and you think about the big folks that we think, from an economic standpoint, their life may not be in perfect order. No one's is, but economically, their life is in order. It's all about networking and rubbing shoulder to shoulder with the right people. But any insight on that, Christian? And I know you've ran across a few instances, even in your current life, in your situation, to where you were in the right room because you took the action and you put yourself in that room, and were able to network that catapulted you?
Yeah, absolutely. End of the day, opportunities come from people, not necessarily actions. So it's getting around those people to actually give you the opportunity so you can take actions on that. So getting in these groups and networking with these people, and not only for future knowledge, but just for current knowledge. As everyone sees things in a different light, we all have different views on things in life and come from a different angle. And while I might not agree with everything someone says, they might have, you know, a tidbit of knowledge that I didn't know that I can apply to my own life and gain from. And you always hope that you can give that to other people as well. So yeah, super important to get in these rooms and build those relationships up.
Absolutely. So I'll be putting that in the show notes, and I'll continue to mention it, and I'll put the information out there. So please, if you want to go, reach out, and we'll be down there, and we can actually meet face to face, shake hands, and build a long lasting relationship. But with that, it's been absolutely phenomenal this evening. Exciting for me. Obviously, my son, his future is absolutely bright, as well as many of you out there that are participating in these assets. Again, the theme tonight really has do your research, dive in, get the education. Don't learn the lessons like we had to learn them. Stay away from the scams. Do not chase yield. Be very, very smart. And most importantly, keep your mindset absolutely on positive lock, because if you close down and you're negative, that's when the opportunities don't come to you. And that's the biggest thing with the mindset. But with that, I've had a blast tonight, Christian. I hope you had a good time. And I got a feeling we'll be doing a few more of these. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, looking forward to doing several more of these in the future.
All right. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, Zip is out.